This is the Discuss Metal Podcast with Bryan Gray of The Blamed. Hosted by Dan Terry. Presented by discussmetal.com.
What is up, everybody? My name is Dan. This is the Discuss Metal Podcast. I don't know how much more of a intro that you need. But speaking of people that need no intro, but I'm going to give one anyway. We've got Bryan Gray from The Blamed, from the Satire, but he's probably most famous for his band Rocks and Pink Cement. How you doing tonight, Bryan?
Good, man. Dan, we've been trying to get you on the podcast for a while now. So it's really cool you're able to make time for us.
Yeah, man. I looked over my super busy schedule and, I was able to pencil you guys in, because I couldn't imagine anybody not wanting to talk to me,
Yeah, it's just your publicist said no a lot.
Yeah, I had to fire that publicist, because I wasn't getting any interviews. And I know that the world wants more of what I've got going on here. Dude, in all seriousness, though, I would say likewise with you. I know that when I reached out to you for the first time to do the podcast, you're like, yeah, I can't even speak. And I was like, that's fine. I'll just do all the talking.
Yeah, exactly. I still can't speak, but so far nobody seems to mind my voice.
Well, I'm going to share this now that we're live. So I got a DM from Jesse from the Satire, who he was all like, "Hey, did you check out Mick from Zayo, his podcast?" And I was all like, "No, I haven't listened to that one yet. I've been meaning to." And he's like, "Oh, well," he's like, "Bryan was totally on that podcast." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, that's cool. I'll check it out." And he's like, "Yeah, but you need to get him to come on your podcast." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. I asked him that already." He's like, "Yeah, but now you can nag him and back it up."
Yeah, you can rub his nose in it. I just feel like my voice sounds horrible, which it does. But then the backstory to this kind of, but the Mick and Jesse thing, or not Jesse, the Mick and Glenn thing was the Jake. My friend Jake runs a coffee roasting company, and he was their guest, and they wanted to surprise him with me as a, hey, here's your old friend from '94. Jake played on the Blame 21 record and the Left Out Pride Kills record with me.
Yeah.
And then, so I went on there to surprise Jake, and his internet crashed the whole time. And I feel like the podcast ended up just being with me. The funny thing is I keep forgetting to listen to that one. So yeah,
it was just funny because he's like, now you can just nag him. And I was all like, well, I mean, I don't like to nag people, but,
yeah.
But yeah, it was fun. It's fun finally getting you on here because there's so much history, man. This is one of the biggest things with a lot of the interviews that I've done over the past year. It's always like I'm talking to somebody and inevitably they're like, yeah, I was doing this and this and this, and then Bryan Gray called and asked me if I wanted to do this, and then somebody, and then it'd be like totally different week, totally different person. Yeah, and then Bryan Gray called and was like, hey, you should try this. And I think Clank put it best whenever he goes, yeah, dude, this entire music scene, this giant extended family that we have going on here is like 50 Shades of Bryan Gray.
Yeah, no, that's just my Valentine's Day post.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I just was involved in the inception, I guess, of a lot of it. Because I went back to fact check your Blamed discography discussion. Am I saying that right?
Yep. Discography disgusting, I think is yeah.
Yeah. Well, you talked about you had never heard the Rocks and Pink Cement demos, so I sent it to you earlier. And so the fun fact is there's a live album in there. That live album is us opening for Scattered Few in Tacoma, Washington, which was this pivotal concert as far as history goes of Christian music, because Brandon was still DJing at his college radio station. Billy Power was there. Mikey Bridges from Sometime Sunday was there. So all this Pacific Northwest things that eventually even spurred into the start of Tooth and Nail was all at that concert. And my crappy high school band is the opening act.
And I actually listened to that demo probably about, 45 minutes ago, something like that. So I'm now an expert on that band.
Yes.
And so in listening to Brian Patton's episode of As the Story Grows, you said that you were quoted as saying that you guys sounded like a heavier Faith No More. I do not hear that.
No, I know. Well, you'd have to be there kind of, but there was slap bass, there was some chuggy guitars, but we played fast.
Yeah.
There's aspects of Scattered Few, there's aspects of Primus, there's aspects of Jane's Addiction. So it's just was that timestamp. But then in my mind, the Faith No More was like the heavy band of that crew.
Right.
The Chili Peppers were almost punk, but they weren't really.
Yeah.
I mean, they were punk, but they never went into like real punk parts. I mean, they did here and there, but not much. So we were doing what I felt was missing. That's always been part of my musical journey is, okay, I hear what I want to hear now in this groovy funk music in the 90s. I want to hear them do the whole bound, and
right.
I want it to get more hectic. So that was Rocks and Pink Cement.
Yeah, I mean that was it was definitely cool because I didn't even know if there was anything recorded. And it's funny, I was sitting there and I just popped it on, and my wife is like, "What is that?" And I was all like, well, you gotta watch my live video tonight to find out." You know, but no, that is probably the best name for a band I've ever heard, and because I grew up in a generation where like bands that were called things like I Wrestled a Bear Once was a cool band name, or the first band I was ever in was called Jelly Donut. You know, so like it's all part of the same part of the same weirdness family. But I think the interesting thing is, back to kind of what Clank had said. I look at your history and the bands that you've been in, and like it's interesting to me how you have watched this scene of basically like Christian alternative music or heavy music or whatever you want to, whatever little box you want to wrap it up in and tie a bow on. But you've been in it through its infancy, through its awkward midlife crisis, and even kind of now in its older age, whereas like now it's accepted as like a normal thing.
As I say, now it doesn't exist.
Oh, it exists to some degree, but like how different. I know Brian Patton already asked this question, but it's been like a year, so I'm going to ask it anyway. How different was this? How different was that scene back then versus how it would become, later on?
Well, there was such an evolution to it. It's not even funny. Which, by the way, am I supposed to respond to these comments?
Oh yeah, you can if you want. It's up to you.
It'll just make me a horrible conversationalist. So I'm not do it and tell everybody.
No, it's fine. Unless somebody asks a question directly, gotcha. I throw these up on screen just because they're, people are watching, and we appreciate everybody. Yeah, we appreciate everyone that's watching.
Us dumb old people don't know any better. So I call it an evolution, right? Yeah. My first step into outside of Rocks and Pink Cement, I went straight from that band into an Intense Records band called Mortal in the 90s.
Yep.
I think I may have mentioned that on the Batten podcast. I can't remember.
Yeah, you were in Mortal for you were in Mortal on the Intense Live album, which I'm going to ask you something about that here in a minute when you're done.
But I'll make it short. The evolution from that to whenever I ended with the Blamed or LS in the early 2000s was completely different. When I joined Mortal, you couldn't smoke and be in a band.
Right.
Like there was no smoking, there was no drinking, there was no secular band t-shirts, there was no. My sister came to a show. I couldn't leave the venue with my sister.
Oh wow!
To go to the hotel because the pastor would see it and wonder why is the bass player of Mortal leaving with the girl to go to the blah blah blah.
Even if it was your sister,
yeah. There was the concept of living beyond reproach or not having the appearance of evil was like legit.
Yeah, and it's funny. That's actually very similar to my experience in my first Christian band, even though it wasn't back then. But I think some of us guys out here in the Midwest were a few years behind on a lot of those things. But yeah, I remember even right down to like scrutiny of individual lyrics and individual things about songs, or like, you didn't want to sound too much like a secular band or anything like that.
How about you had to submit pastoral references to play concerts?
Yeah, that's insane. But
But we had to do it.
it's how I feel about that later in life is so different than how I probably would have felt about that in high school.
But think about your children, right? How old's your oldest kid?
7.
So imagine your 7-year-old's now 15 and wanting to go out to events and concerts. And do you care that they're going to the all ages venue down the street, or that they're going to the church group where you're hoping they're safe?
Yeah, no, I can definitely see it from that perspective. I would argue that if their dad was anybody but me, then yeah, it's the church all all around. But like it is crazy to think that. Do you think that it was that way just in kind of the sense that I've kind of explored this in other interviews too? Do you think it was that hardcore, no pun intended, because Christian music was trying to establish itself as a legitimate thing, not just to the outside world or the general market, but also to the Christians as well? It's almost like fighting a battle on two fronts.
Well, I don't know how to answer that. So I'm going to answer it wrong. So forgive me, can correct me. But honestly, I just feel like parents were scared. They wanted a safe place for their children to go, and they wanted to be able to trust where their children were going, the content they're listening to. Back then, we weren't really trying to make it. I mean, I remember going and hanging out when I was in Mortal, having the random gig a year with Circle of Dust. We'd play together a couple times a year, and they were really going after more of the mainstream. Like, they were meeting the guys from Prong and all these other bands, and like Mortal, we weren't.
Right.
Like, we were getting thrown mainstream gigs, but it was a Christian band. We were playing Christian venues, and we were playing Christian music on a Christian label.
Yeah.
But it was fairly successful as well. That Fathom album, I didn't play on Fathom, but I joined during the last days of that session. They were in the studio, and I'm playing my first shows. And yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I really like Mortal actually. Got Mortal albums. The first Mortal albums that I heard, I bought at Cornerstone on cassette. Not because I'm old, but because they were selling cassettes for dirt cheap because they were old. So I bought like all of the Intense Records stuff that was available. So it's like the first time I heard Vengeance and
totally
some of the older Mortification stuff.
But I grew up loving that stuff too. So when I got to be on the Mortal Intense Live Records thing, like, I don't think I've ever said this publicly. Do you know how big of a deal it was for me to be like, dude, I'm on an Intense Records release.
Dude,
it's awesome. Vengeance Rising, Deliverance, Tourniquet, all this stuff. I was gonna say crap, but but it was such a big deal to do that, and that was the side where I make fun of his crap, because it was the flip side. Then when I got into it, so we were talking before we went live about, like, I work in live music.
Yeah.
Never meet your heroes. So playing in Mortal and getting to meet all my favorite metal bands and getting treated the way metal bands treat other bands, I was like, ugh, I don't ever want to do this again.
Right, sure. I definitely wish I could say that I hadn't experienced that, but I have a few times just in doing this. But I think that's interesting too. Just that whole kind of idea of image being, I almost, and this sounds terrible because there were great bands from that time period. So I'm not trying to discard them. I mean, for me, it's hard for anybody to mention a band better than Deliverance or, something like that. But like, it was almost like they were almost more image over substance, in the sense that, like, these bands were playing thrash in like the early to mid 90s, and like, thrash had moved on. By that point you had death metal bands and grindcore bands and hardcore bands and, all of that stuff.
But I will say this, Christian music in 90, I was in Mortal in 93. In 93, Christian music was still one step behind.
Yeah.
That was always a thing in the 80s and 90s. So in my youth, like when you had Scattered Few come out, Scattered Few came out in like whatever, that was pre-93. That was the first, like, where you're like, whoa, this is relevant.
Yeah, this sounds modern.
Yeah. For Christian music, that was different, and it is like what you said. I saw Deliverance right after their first record came out on Intense, and it was the best Deliverance show I've ever seen.
Oh, I'm sure. That's awesome. So
yeah, no, it totally. My friend just texted me and hijacked my train of thought.
It's all good.
I'm like, stop texting me. No,
we're live. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Keep texting me. But anyways, like when I saw Deliverance, it was like so intense. That show, they had Roger Martinez out doing merch with them. The show ends. They ask for an encore, and Roger comes out and does White Throne.
Oh, that's so cool.
That was, I think you're aware. We sent you some of the. We did that cover EP for the beginning of COVID a year ago.
Yeah, you guys had Jason Wisdom do the vocals.
Yes.
He did his best Roger Martinez impression. I loved it.
Oh, it was great. But like, so when we picked all those songs, they were songs that I had an attachment to, and that was how we picked them. And that was so I picked White Thrones because of that Deliverance show.
Yeah, and I love that cover. That's something I'm going to get into a little bit later into the chat too. Is all the videos and all the covers and all of that stuff that I thought was
all
really
the crap.
Cool. All the crap. Yeah. That's the word of the night. Crap. Just capital C.
It's a Christian cuss word.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to say hell or shit or damn or anything like that. You know.
I mean, but you have to imagine when Scatterview played Cornerstone one year, their guitar player said the F word on stage,
right?
Because he was having technical difficulties, and they had a huge problem with it.
Yeah, it's so funny how much more doctrinally. This is you could totally tell I grew up in youth group culture. So much more doctrinally sound. They didn't just let things slide, and that's good. Whatever. Like I was that kind of person all the way up until I was in my 20s. So like I get it. And so it's funny whenever you say that stuff. Like I kind of like relate to it in a way that like this is exactly how my whole past was.
Sure, but is there ever times where you miss the standard? And that's not a
yes.
That's not a loaded question. I don't know the answer to it.
Sometimes I do. It depends on what it is, and sure. I think that's human nature in a certain degree. Not that we're here to talk about theology, but like, human nature dictates that like nobody wants a standard to follow as much as they want to just chop up the things that they like. So, I'm going to say that, yeah, I think that super sexually explicit things shouldn't be aimed at children or shouldn't be, but then I'll sit there and debate you for 12 hours about why it's okay for me to drink like 6 beers while we're doing an interview,
sure.
So like there's definitely a lot of I don't even want to say gray area because the people that are hardcore about it don't see a gray area. And then everybody else, and I think that was one of the hardest parts about growing up in that culture was just, there was no gray area. There was just you and your family and your friends and everybody else. And at the drop of a hat, somebody that you knew or loved could do something that put them in the everybody else category,
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. And it was that way in Christian music, to be honest, but so that's where I'm in the boat in between. Cause like, I'm a member of the Bad Christian Club. I love those guys challenging some of the thought process. I find it very inspiring. But there's times when I hear them on there just when I don't really want to ask this because I don't want them to text me about it. But there's definitely
they don't listen to me.
Yeah, well, I just meant there's days or moments where I want to say like, are you just defending how much you can get away with?
Yeah, that's a really fine line. I mean, that had a lot to do with my decision on whether or not to even make our podcasts like Christian or not. Because I felt like we could make a Christian podcast and it could do really, really, really well. We just have to clean our language up a little bit and not be so obvious about our alcohol consumption and, things like that. But whenever it really came down to it, I was like, I want to be able to talk about any band that I want,
totally.
Without restrictions. And I think the only downside to that is that you end up with a lot of people that are just not living honestly. And I think it leads to a lot of corruption behind the scenes, which is I'm not going to be all like, so who actually was walking the walk I'm not going to ask that question.
Well, I just mean you take it a step further of like, how horrible is it having to hide things?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. So that's what I think that's one thing that comes from that culture the 90s Christianity, whatever you want to call it, is there is a lot of weird, maybe guilt or,
Yeah.
things we don't. I was raised in Christian music. You can't have a bad day.
Right.
Right. Like that was a thing. Like I still to date don't know how to have a bad day. Whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, because it's one of those things that you're always, on witness. And I apologize to anybody that's watching this and like isn't into Christian music or whatever. But like this is something that, I don't really get to talk about with anybody very often.
If it helps for people that are just tuning in that don't know the story, I came from Christian music. I openly admit it. I don't have a problem. I don't try to do the whole denying it, justifying it, not justifying it. I walked in and was stoked to do this for God. I
Sure.
love the concept of, to minister is to serve. So I went in to just play guitar. And what does that do? So not to get preachy or speak a different language, I just tell them the backstory. That's where my upbringing came from. So if you're coming into it to really have that servant mentality, then yeah, you just have to suck it up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you have to just deal with a lot of things,
Yeah.
and compartmentalize a lot of things.
And I'll tell you this, I don't miss it. That's the side of it I don't miss.
Yeah.
As much as I miss sometimes some of the standards. I don't admit the only reason I miss the standards is when you get into, and we won't name names, but like a band that put out a record a few years ago where they dropped some F-bombs on it and
right.
people got all up in arms about it. I was like, me and Travis from the Satire X, as the story goes.
Oh, Trevor from Philly. Yeah.
Trevor from Philly. Me and Trevor, we were laughing about it. We were like, it just seemed so intentional. It was hard to take serious.
Yeah.
But anyways, keep asking your questions. I'm going to shut up.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, that I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, it was very obvious that it was trying to, I don't know, draw a line in the sand or something. I don't know. I can't speak for other people, but I do think that like there were a lot of positives to that as well, though, to having the standards. There's definitely a flip side to all of it. I get criticized a lot by people that are like, you just seem so down on Christian music all the time. And it's not really that. Like I'm the same way. I grew up in it, and I listened to all of that stuff growing up, and a lot of it was because I was allowed to, and not allowed to listen to other things. Granted, it's really hard explaining to your parents that Mortification's, Scrolls of the Megaloth album, is Christian, because all they hear is like gurgly screams and
Totally.
and heavy riffs and blast beats and all of that. But yeah,
and what's different between you and I is because I wasn't raised Christian, so the idea that I even fell into this is like a totally different backstory.
Yeah. This is the positive side of it for me is that a guy like me that grew up in church is able to experience, heavy metal and experience industrial or experience alternative music, or rap music or whatever it is. Stuff that like, I feel like if we had been a couple of decades prior, there wasn't a Christian music scene to speak of.
No. Yeah. Or it was horrible, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was obviously a ripoff of something else, or it was, all the things that people still to this day accuse Christian music of being, But I also think that there was a lot of sincerity there. I don't think there were a lot of bands. I'm sure there were some, but I don't think that there were a lot of bands from that era that, were intentionally out to deceive people or to do anything that would piss somebody off.
Outside of the few that were milking the Christian cow, most of those folks, I believe, you talk about meeting your heroes. Mike Stand from the Altar Boys. We played a show once with Plank Eye somewhere in Orange County, and Mike Stand was the MC for it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was legit. So it was pretty rad having him come in and he was there for the people, and it was great. And I remember being backstage, which is like the church cafeteria downstairs, and him teaching me how to play the final hour on guitar. And I was like, oh my gosh. So as much as I'm like, don't meet your heroes, every now and then it works out.
Yeah, totally. So as that scene kind of moved on, we talked about I'm trying to throw a narrative onto this conversation if you can't tell. I always kind of
Sure.
come in with my own agenda about what we're going to talk
No,
about.
good, because I'll keep derailing you.
Yeah. Oh, you're
So
good.
where did you first start listening to music?
Oh, well, it was a rainy day. And my mother had just taken away my rattle, and then I started listening to Slayer, and then, but no, as it went on though, and then now we're going to start, I want to kind of shift from, and I want to ask you questions about the Blamed, but at the same time, I feel like that's also been kind of covered to death, in the sense
Sure.
of, I listened to Brian Patton's podcast, and that answered. I actually listened to that and got kind of dismayed. I was like, well, crap, what are we going to talk about? Every time we say the word crap, take a drink. But like,
Yeah, so is that the new drinking game?
yeah.
You can always ask me about Living Sacrifice.
Oh, I will. Don't worry. I got that loaded up. I'm on a Living Sacrifice high.
No, I was kidding. I was like, hopefully you're exhausted at that topic.
No, not really. There's some bands I could talk about forever. I think a specific 3-letter word band that I could talk about forever ad nauseum. But speaking to bands like that,
I'm a huge Yes fan too, by the way.
Fair enough. I like Yes. I like Yes more than I like Rush. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that's a hot take for some people, but I do enjoy it. And I'm going to say something later that's going to be like, oh God, I wish I hadn't done this podcast. But the evolution, from being kind of a homegrown sort of movement, Christian bands back then, they booked their own shows and they played in gymnasiums and they played in church basements and like all of these things. But then, after that first wave, I don't want to say they died off. They didn't really die off, but like after that first wave sort of went away or changed, you started having Christian bands that were, like you had Tooth and Nail Records, had kind of taken over from the old school, like, Intense Records, sort of scene. I'm talking more specifically heavy music. I know there's more labels involved. You had REX
Sure.
and stuff like that, which REX is, there aren't a lot of heavy releases from REX that I don't think are like 10 out of 10s,
Sure. But REX just had such a disadvantage. They even walked in and they couldn't keep up with Intense Records.
Yeah.
And their bands were more, when you talk about authenticity or being legitimate, you go to REX. So fast forward to what a year are we, 2021?
Yeah.
Like when I listen to Intense Records releases nowadays, I'm like, some of that stuff's kind of embarrassing. But I'll tell you what, I can put on those Believer records and that first Living Sacrifice record,
Yep.
Circle of Dust records, probably even Sacrament, and I'm going, man, this stuff was awesome.
Sacrament was rad, dude.
Yeah.
Totally rad.
They were REX though, right?
They were REX. Yeah, I've got their tapes still. I got so many tapes. You had no idea. It moved on from that thrash scene, and I guess for a while there, everything went a little bit more hardcore. And even the Blamed, like to an extent, your first record was more of just like a punk record. I say it so dismissively. I apologize. But like,
that's okay. You can dismiss it. It was such a
punk record. Oh,
yeah.
And I'm unashamedly a hardcore guy. So Frail. Got to talk about Frail for a minute because Frail was probably one of the first legitimate hardcore records that I ever heard.
I thought you were going to do a costume change for this.
Well, yeah, right. Just take it off, throw the Frail shirt on. Yeah. No, I'm representing unteachers tonight. That's where I'm at. But the Frail record was interesting to me because it was one of the first like legit hardcore records I ever heard. And I say legit hardcore because I had heard bands, like I had heard like newer bands before I heard Frail. I bought Frail for like $2, probably at a Christian festival, from a CD seller that was selling old Tooth and Nail albums, like trying to get, a couple bucks off of them. And I remember popping in Frail, and I remember not being able to describe it to my friends, and I remember being like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's like punk, because like pop punk was like really big then. And I was like, I don't know, man. It's like punk, but it's like actually heavy, and like the dude just screams his head off the entire time, and it doesn't like always sound beautiful or sound pretty or anything, but like But then at the same time, they also had like these more like slower, singy type songs, and I don't know, I just really love the contrast. When you guys did that live stream with Flatfoot a little while ago, I loved that because you played so much off of Frail.
Well, we intentionally did a Frail set.
Yeah, it was absolutely mind blowing for me to be watching that in a quote unquote live setting.
Yeah.
You know,
So we're kind of we consider ourselves retired, not really, but like we just play when we play.
sure.
And we had in 2020, we had, I want to say, 2 or 3 festivals booked, and the 30-year, we were opening for Living Sacrifice on the 30-year show,
Yeah.
like the video premiere, whatever. Well, that was the 25th anniversary of Frail. So that set that we played on the live stream was our set for last year.
Okay. I gotcha. Yeah, so that would have been super cool. Well, we got the Frail shirts.
Yeah.
I'm living proof of that. Yeah, that I ever since I saw that album cover, I always wanted it on a shirt. That was one of the biggest things.
Ever since that album cover, we wanted to make a shirt and we just could never get it.
Yeah.
And then finally Jim Worthen helped me out with, oh, by the way, here's the artwork. And I sent it to the manufacturer and they were like, eyes roll, I guess we could do this. And they did it.
How could we print? This isn't printable. I had to deal with that in my old band where we would come up with logos and artwork and stuff, and they'd be like, it just can't be done.
Yeah, that's what we got with the Frail thing. But they finally made it and it looks great.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Shameless plug, go to theblameband.com and buy your favorite Frail shirt.
Absolutely, do it. It's amazing. If you wear it as much as I wear mine, then it'll look like it actually came from the album release. You know, like it's
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I love that shirt, but I'm probably gonna have to order another one because it's almost falling apart. You know,
Just quit washing it.
but like with Christian music, back to my narrative, like with Christian music moving on to like you know, more of like a hardcore. I know hardcore like really took off with like the spirit-filled hardcore bands. And you know, you have like Focus and Unashamed and all of that. You know, and then you ended up with like Tooth and Nail, Solid State, and Cornerstone. And I know Cornerstone has existed for quite a while before that, but you know, what was it like then versus the beginning? Like, was there anything that made that kind of era feel different in any way, or like, you know, maybe more exciting, less exciting, medium exciting, not exciting?
I don't know. Well, because they were so close to each other.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where, like when you guys were doing the discography discussion on the Blamed, I don't know if I'm answering your question right, so fix me when I'm doing it wrong. But I think Joe said it came out in 96. It really didn't. That came out in 95. Those records were like literally so back to back.
Oh, yeah.
So, because there was, so one thing that happened that was weird with 21, I'm going to lump those two together for a second.
Okay.
If that's okay with you.
I'm fine with it.
21 drops. We go on tour. It's featuring members of the Blamed or of Mortal and the Crucified.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of people that came to watch us. They loved the show. They bought merch. The Tooth and Nail thing was just starting to explode. And then the feedback, though, was, oh, I expected it to be faster because Jim Chaffin's in the band. Oh, I expected it to be heavier because Bryan from Mortal's in the band. So,
starting to sound like me and Joe.
well, I'm just saying that was like some of the feedback we got. So when we went in to do Frail, there was a little bit of this drive in us to be like, I mean, eventually for me, I am that punk rock guy that's like, man, I'll play it faster and harder, beat it, do whatever I want. So,
Sure.
So walking in musically between the two, and now, so I'm really, you know, I do some of the engineering for the recent stuff we do.
Yeah.
Like I don't consider myself this phenomenal engineer, but I am a hobbyist and I enjoy doing it. But I listen to a lot of music from an engineering perspective. And one funny thing is, if you listen to 21, production on it's kind of garbage.
I agree.
It's a timestamp of 94. But if you were to go listen to the Offspring record from that year, the tones aren't very different.
I can't disagree with you. We did an Offspring episode too, so I
Yeah.
that's kind of fresh in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. If you were to literally AB him, you'd be like, huh, this is what 94 sounded like.
Yeah.
But the difference is Offspring played that record with so much more vigor than the Blame did. We did that record in 21 hours. It was just thrown in the studio. So, and then even like, I think you guys were talking about the concept of it sounds like our first record.
Yeah.
The thing is it was most of those songs were songs I played in like out of high school and stuff like that. So it was kind of a collection of some of my youth put into a record with a bunch of people that had no, outside of my friend Jake Landau, who played on that record with me, none of the rest of the band had the backstory. But which, by the way, we are intending this year we're going to release this year it's going to be called 2021, and we're redoing that record.
Okay. Like from the ground up?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We already started on it, to be honest, but it's we're trying to give it a modern take and see if we don't screw it up.
Modern as in like there's going to be like a whole bunch of like electronics thrown in with like a bunch of whoa thrown in behind it,
Lots of tambourine and hey.
There it is.
Oh, no, it's going to be it's still going to sound like that record. Just a little modern take in the tones and aggression in playing it. Jeff will be singing it, and Sid, and so yeah, it's got some. I don't know how else to describe it. It's got some cool stuff in the works for the demos.
That's exciting. No, that's awesome. You heard it here, folks.
If you really have, I haven't told anybody. I mean, I send teasers in my messages to people, knowing they won't get it, so it's pretty funny. But did I answer your question in the transition of the scene?
No, but that's okay. I'm just going to ask it again in a different way. Because I realized that I talked about
stupid.
Well, no, I realized that I talked about Frail, and then I didn't give you a chance to talk about Frail. So it's we're equal level. We're on equal levels of disrespect tonight.
And then in grouping those together, Dan, do you prefer Dan or Daniel? I always forget to ask.
Oh, Dan's fine.
So in grouping those together, there is a 90s thing also going on in Frail. When you listen to the song Torn.
Yeah.
It's very influenced by Stone Temple Pilots. When you hear Breeze, it's like Smashing Pumpkins pre-Sunny Day Real Estate vibe.
Yeah.
As far as the guitar and drum parts go. So, but that's what I mean by the 90s thing really had a timestamp on those records.
Yeah.
So that's all. Carry on. Sorry.
Absolutely. I could never really put my finger on it either because I didn't hear it in the 90s, but
yeah.
And in the 90s, I wasn't allowed to listen to Stone Temple Pilots so it's so funny too, like the perception of somebody that only listens to Christian music for a period of time.
Sure.
How I was joking with Living Sacrifice guys about how like I heard Living Sacrifice self-titled before I heard Slayer. So I heard Slayer and thought, oh, this sounds like Living Sacrifice, you know, like that sort of thing. And it was the same thing there. It's interesting hearing some of that. And it's funny, something else that you mentioned on Bryan's podcast, because I got to always give plugs out to As the Story Grows because they're one of my favorite podcasts. And Bryan does really good work over there. So but you had mentioned that that you were pre-Stavesaker, but like some of the stuff I get a little bit of a Stavesaker vibe off of also, which I thought was really interesting. Not to say that you guys were like influenced or that they were influenced by you guys. I know they had pretty much already started up at that point, but it was.
Well, maybe me and Jeff Ballou were listening to the same music.
That's entirely possible.
Him and I were playing Immortal together my tenure with Immortal was mostly with Jeff.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense.
He was like someone I looked up to because he's taller than me, and because
literally looked up to him.
Yeah. Danny's a phenomenal guitar player. Him and I still make the joke of, because he was there for the whole Frail section or recording. And then I make fun of it after I left every night. They were like, okay, look, he's gone. Jeff, can you play these songs good, please? And they had Jeffrey do all my guitar parts.
Oh, wow. That's some harsh reality there. I don't know if I was ready for that.
Well, I don't know that when I make that joke to Jeff, he's like, I could either confirm or deny it. So. Like, thanks.
No, so okay, so I'm gonna circle back a little bit to the transition period, because even the Blame records, definitely took on kind of a hardcore presence, to the point where, like, I mean, there's there's some stuff even on like Germany that I'm like, oh my god, this is like perfect for me, like perfect hardcore, but like still like punk. I think whenever I first heard hardcore, people were all like saying bands like Norma Jean were hardcore and stuff like that.
Sure.
So like I had a totally different expectation. So when I would listen to The Blamed, I'd be like, oh, this is punk rock. I made such a distinction between but then, once Wikipedia was a thing, I was able to kind of educate myself a little bit more on that and listen to musical examples. And then I was like, holy crap, I've been listening to hardcore. I've been listening to hardcore for much longer than I thought that I had been listening to hardcore, but like that,
if you were to talk to like Paul from 121,
yeah,
he was their original guitar player. We're from the same age group. Yeah, Paul and I would discuss. We would laugh about how you'd be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna listen to the Sex Pistols or the Ramones, Minor Threat, Slayer, and Youth of Today," and they all fit in the same genre, and maybe even some Beastie Boys fit in there.
Yeah,
but that was just, we're talking 91 at that point. But at 91, those were all acceptable. Like Slayer was kind of punk, kind of hardcore, even though they're a metal band. But in 91, that was a thing. And then obviously, then the subgenres took over.
Yeah, the subgenres all took over. And I think that's what I'm kind of getting into as well, is like that huge mix. Cause like I'll recount kind of my first experience at Cornerstone. I don't think I made it to Cornerstone until 2003, maybe 2003, okay, 2004. So like I was in high school at the time.
Yeah.
And one year my parents said I was too young to go by myself. And then the next year they were like, all right, he won't shut up about it. So if he goes and he'll be gone for a week and not be complaining about how we didn't let him go to Cornerstone,
Well, isn't it not that far from your house?
It's about 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah. But I mean, there's people that drove from.
Oh yeah. Yeah. In the grand scheme of things, it really wasn't that far, but I mean, to your point earlier, about being a parent and wanting your kids to be safe, the concept of like, okay, you want to do what now? You want to drive 3 or 4 hours away from home to camp in the middle of a cornfield, for a whole week, and wait, it costs how much to get in? Like it was one of those, like, cause I mean, that was what, $135 in 2003 money,
probably. Yeah. It was expensive. I worked there, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was.
I was the guy yelling at bands to get off the stage.
Get off the stage, man! You played your allotted 30 minutes. So, like when we got there, it was me and some friends of mine. It was my buddy Mike and my buddy Dominic went the first year, and
Did
neither
they from Texas, or were they with you?
Huh? No, they were with me. They were
okay.
Best bud. They were like just friends. Dominic played in my band, Jelly Donut. He was our bass player. He hated hardcore. We didn't get along that well a lot of the time, but like he went with us, and my buddy Mike went with us, and Mike was into like Norwegian like extreme metal, so like it was such a weird combination of people. But then like I was just there to see, I was like, well, Zayo's going to be there, at some point, if I'm patient enough, Zayo is going to show up and play, and all that. So like I went, and I want to say, I think Living Sacrifice had broken up I don't know, maybe a year before that. I think that's why I was so bummed that I missed their, I think it was like one of their final shows.
The one with Jason or the one with Bruce? I'm trying to remember the timeline.
Well, I'm trying to remember it too, because so I think their last show was
the Bruce one.
I just watched this documentary too. I should know this.
I know. He just hosted the Q&A. What the heck?
I know, right? Some dude doesn't even know when they broke up. So they broke up in 2003. So I must have actually been there in 2004, not in 2003. That makes more sense.
Yeah, that would have been the Bruce's last show. Or
yeah, because I remember they originally were going to have Corey be the singer of not Norma Jean. He did become the singer of Norma Jean. But like they were going to have him be the singer of Living Sacrifice, which there is some alternate reality where that happened, and it was probably actually pretty cool, you know. But like, it's. I remember going to Cornerstone and the experience just being completely overwhelming because, you know, I had listened to a few bands, like more modern bands, but this is still like dial-up internet days, you know.
Yeah.
That, you know, there's no YouTube, there's no MySpace, there's no, you know, like any of that stuff. And so like I may have only heard, like I'd heard Living Sacrifice and Zayo and like a few bands, but I didn't really know what the full extent of it was. And so I went to Cornerstone, I was like completely blown away by the amount of band, because like I would like walk past, I would just be walking past this generator and there'd be a band on stage playing, and like I'd be like, this sounds like Zayo, you know, or like this sounds like Norma Jean, or this sounds like, you know, whatever.
And it might have been one of them.
Yeah, and well, yeah. And so what was funny is that like I remember seeing that and being totally overwhelmed. And I think Blaster the Rocket Man, I saw them play too. It was either that year or the next year, and it's funny because he's up there and he's like, yeah, it's really weird, man. Back in the day when we used to play at Cornerstone, you'd walk past a tent and you just hear a bamp and a bamp and a bamp and a bamp and a bamp. He's like, but now every time we walk past the stage, all you hear is,
Yeah.
you know, coming from everywhere. And but that's like legitimately what it was like. And so I guess if I could circle back to my original question, you know, what was the experience like transitioning from like, hey, we're playing in churches, we're playing in, you know, all these like places that are not conventional like music venues and stuff, to where like you fast forward to like 2004, and I know it's a huge jump in time, but like what is that like seeing where it's like an actual industry at that point, and that it's really, because I want to say those years were like when it was really at like the beginnings of being at the height of its popularity.
Well, so I'm an unfair one because the Blamed ended when you still played Christian venues.
Okay.
So I hardly experienced that. But my last tour with the Blamed, the last season of touring, we were definitely at the point where we were like, we don't want to play. I remember playing with Cody Hook in Portland, and we're in the church foyer or something. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
But anyways, or maybe the main auditorium. And at one point I'm singing, I'm playing, and people are allowed to crowd surf in this church. But to do it, they're jumping off of the altar.
Oh.
And I remember just being like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And it's not even to put more power in the altar or something. It just still felt like I wanted to go tell Pastor Joe Jim Bob, like, hey man, let's do these, but let's put the altars in the other room for the night.
Sure.
Or something. And just let's really not. I get it. We get a free venue. It's all ages. And the truth is, I remember the pastor that night being someone that legitimately cared about people. I mean, when you're in that era of music, it was always funny too. You had like, you went the one night and you played at a church, and it was a guy that he cared about the culture, he cared about his city, he cared about his people, and he was like, people really wanted to see a change in their town. They were doing food drives, maybe, hey, tickets are $10, but bring a can of food, you get it for $9.
Right.
They were just trying to impact their culture. And then the next night you go play, and the promoter was like, Jim Bob, youth pastor, getting shoulder rubs from youth group chicks. When you had to go get paid, you were like, this is creepy.
This is gross. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was always like, so, you know, when you saw some of that and you saw those venues die, you were like, good. And then when you saw the legit guy, you just wanted to maybe help teach him, like, I want to play your venue, but I don't want people crowd surfing off of the altar. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. And that was it, you know. So that was where I started to see the change for myself. And then I was happy to then as that year finished, I remember it being that just our booking person was Jeff Cloud from Velvet Blue.
Yeah.
And Jeff even saying like, yeah, we're trying to tell places like, we'll play your church, but you got to put us in the youth group room and clear it out and just make it a room that can hold this many people.
Sure.
With us, even if the PA is just speakers on a stick and we only put vocals in it, the Blamed is set up to do that kind of show, which we were, and we went in and we're just fun.
Yeah, I get that, you know, especially whenever it's not necessarily like you said, like it's like that there's power in the altar or anything, but it is one of those like 2 nights ago, somebody was here, bearing their soul out to somebody at that altar, and this is just a bunch of sweaty dudes jumping off of it. I can kind of see that, especially since I'm like kind of transitioning into being an old person. I can totally
Get off my
understand
altar.
that. Yeah. Well, it's funny too because like my distrust of people younger than me is starting to increase as it goes on. Like if I look out my window and I see like 3 kids walking down the street, like whatever, like stuff I did when I was a kid.
Yeah,
I'm immediately like, what are they up to? What
I have
are they
a
doing?
19-year-old, so I'm used to it.
Yeah. So like I'm like, oh, what are these kids doing? My wife laughs at me. She's like, you're such an old man. Like, we were wondering what these little whippersnappers are up to, but like, but I do think that it's interesting just how popular this style of music got, and I attribute a lot of that to like, to fast forward even a little bit, even more to your like As I Lay Dyings and Under Oath, and even Norma Jean was very popular. Do you feel like the heart of that scene had kind of changed in any way? Not like necessarily specifically about those bands, but I'm just trying to get a sense of like, it was one way at the beginning and then it became something else and then it became something completely different towards the end.
Well, you always appreciated the As I Lay Dyings pre-steroids, that they were they went mainstream. And probably the only Christian show they played was Cornerstone. And it was because they liked being at Cornerstone.
Sure.
It wasn't even for the money meal ticket. They wanted to be at Cornerstone.
Yeah.
That was the same with probably POD to an extent. They got their start there. They were loyal to the venue, which being the festival. And then, so behind the scenes, after My Music World stopped, whenever that was, 2003-ish.
Yeah.
My next gig was I tour managed the Cherry first season. And, but, Josh Goggin is very big on his integrity and then been doing it that way. So to be honest, my next band I went out with, I really liked and went out for that reason, because I wanted to be somewhere I felt safe.
Sure.
Like, you've got kids. So at that point, my kid was like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then am I going out of town, going on tour with a band that's going to strip clubs and bars? Because now that's acceptable within the music culture. And this is what I'm spending my time away from my family doing. I don't want to do that. So when I went and worked for the Chariot, Josh had heavy standards for the band. And even it was interesting being the tour manager and again, getting back into the Christian language, but being sensitive to that. Like, I'm going on tour, I'm playing shows. I've got other bands that are underneath us that I have to get their drink tickets every night. I've got 2 crew members that aren't in the Chariot that are maybe not even believers. And so we don't take drink tickets for the band. How do I get my crew members their drink tickets if they want it?
Right.
And have it not be from the Chariot.
Right.
So, every night I get my drink tickets. Okay. And I would give a speech, hey, I'm Bryan, I'm tour manager, blah, 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 blah. This is our laminate. The Chariot doesn't drink anything but soda. I want them to be able to get soda at every bar with this laminate. Our laminate was a different color than everybody else's. So the promoter was like, no problem. Or if the promoter didn't like it, he's like, no, but I'll go buy 3 cases of soda and put it in the drink. I was like, great.
Right.
And then, so I'd get the drink tickets, give them to the other bands, and I would go buy to the main support. Hey, I'm giving you the Chariot's drink tickets. And they'd be like, hell yeah. I was like, and I need you to make sure you buy a drink for my guitar tech and my merch guy. And they were like, done. So I was able to navigate that water. But the tide's changing. And again, I don't know if that's answering it, but that was
no, definitely no. That's important, I think, because there's, like you said, like the venues were pretty non-conventional, but then you're kind of in this world now, with the Chariot where, they're playing clubs. They're playing exactly the kind of venues that you would have wanted to play back in the day,
Yeah.
Like legitimate music venues and bars and clubs and things like that. But then, at the same time, where does that standard come into play? Is it still what it was before? Has it changed? if it did change, why did it change?
Sure.
That sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting kind of getting to talk to somebody that kind of lived through a lot of that. And earlier on
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The
No, you're
bands
good.
wanted it to change. I
Yeah.
will say that. I wasn't one of those. I was content in my Christian music world. I just, but our whole goal was, to be honest, we wanted to change the world. And then it was easier to do in the church culture or within the church venues. And it wasn't that we were reaching out to Christians, but the truth of the matter is we were really going after the Christians with the sense of like, I mean, dude, how many times have you heard, man, Christians are jerks? You know what I mean?
All the time.
That was our big thing, was like, we really as a band went after, I walk in a venue and the sound guy thinks we're a bunch of jerks walking out of there, then we're a bunch of hypocrites. So
Right.
It starts at that level that I have to say please and thank you when I ask for more kick drum in my monitor.
Sure.
If I can't treat the sound guy with the same respect I'm treating and being treated with, then this is a joke. So I personally, I'm telling me to railroad you, but I just meant we weren't that way. But then I can name drop them. When you dealt with the guys in like Stavesacre, when I talked to Mark, they wanted the mainstream. And they were having a hard time because they would go play. I think my favorite example, and he told me the story, was Jacksonville, Florida. They had a huge venue there, Christian venue, would draw in hundreds. You'd make a ton of money. They didn't want to do those kind of shows. So they got booked at the local cool indie rock bar in Jacksonville and played in front of maybe 20 people.
Yep. That's reality.
Yeah.
Whereas they'd played the Christian show, they would have got at least 100 on the low end.
Yeah. But then you fast forward, that's to answer your question, is everybody wanted that so bad that they killed their music scene. So then you have bands like Stavesacre that are still in that demographic. So now they're coming to Chicago and they're playing the local all ages venues that aren't Christian, and they still don't have those numbers. But then you're into the more modern, but that's probably to do with some of their age demographic. But then you have that same year, maybe Norma Jean's playing or Ludacris, whatever that earliest phases are.
Yeah.
And they're selling out that same punk venue. So that's where you saw the As LA Dyings take off, the Underoaths. It's like when Bruce talked in the documentary, the year he quit, music was on the rise. I mean, music was at its highest point.
It blew up. Yeah.
Like Living Sacrifice was on a trajectory for massive success. By being in the right place at the right time. Sorry.
No, you're good. I always joke that like if they had stuck it out for one more year.
Totally.
Because I remember like, cause I was that kid even in high school where like my friends would be like, yeah, well, that Christian music you listen to is okay, I guess. But like, we like bands like Slipknot and Soulfly and Pantera. And I used to be like, dude, Living Sacrifice like stands toe to toe with all of those bands. You know what I mean? Like they are just as legit. They're as on top of it. They're technically amazing. Aggressive, heavy. They're a Christian band. But It's weird how there was, even when I was in high school, there was that stigma of, oh, it's a Christian band, so we're not going to check it out. And then you fast forward, you look at the entire rise and fall of like metalcore music that took place in the 2000s, where you're actually in a genre of music where like 70% of the bands are Christian bands.
Yeah.
On what planet does that happen?
Yeah. But they just got good.
Yeah, they just got good.
Yeah. That was a big factor. I mean, remember the first time, what was your response the first time you heard those first two notes on Blood and Fire?
Yeah. I mean, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life.
That was the same thing. I was like speechless, jaw dropped. Like,
yeah, I can't believe that it sounds like this. That this could exist. Like, I think what's interesting about a record like Blood and Fire is that it reprogrammed your brain in a way. Whereas, because before I heard Blood and Fire, sure, I'd heard like heavy bands, I'd heard death metal bands, I'd heard thrash bands, I'd heard all these different bands, hardcore bands, but there's something about Dan's voice and how raw those riffs were and how heavy they were that it was like, okay, this is actually, because like you listen to a band like Pantera, right? And you're like, okay, this is as heavy as music gets.
Yeah.
It can't ever be any more extreme than this. And then you hear something like Zayo and you're like, this is next level. Like,
Totally. But it just kept on that whole thing. If you think of 98, same year, Reborn,
yeah.
Boom, 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 I mean, it just fired you up. And then you go into the next level of like, I'm fast forwarding too far ahead, but you think of Bless the Martyr, and I hear, put the CD in, and I hear, running up, and it's,
yeah.
And it was just like, I had that exact same emotional experience.
Yeah.
Where I was like, oh my gosh, this is like nothing I've ever heard or done.
My parents hated Bless the Martyr, Kiss the Child, and we bought it at a Christian bookstore. They drove me up there and paid for it. And then my dad was like, yeah, let's pop it in the CD player on the way home. And I've just never, like, seriously, my parents hear this record and like the blood just drains out of their faces. Like, dude, it was like that scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail where like their faces are just melting off. Like you're like, what in the world? Not Monty Python, Indiana Jones. Sorry. Wow.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Sorry. I sent my wife a meme earlier, a Monty Python meme. I think that's why it's still floating around in my brain. But, so, and I actually have a point to all this as far as the transition of music or whatever. The Satire is a band that has been around, I think, a lot longer than most people know. Whenever you started the Satire, was your motivation kind of more geared towards that, like what the newer stuff is, or was it just like, yeah, I don't know, man, I want to do something a little bit more I don't know, I guess experimental, crazy?
No, actually, if you heard the early Satire demos, you would probably throw up in your mouth.
Okay. Send those to me. I don't have anything else to do later tonight.
Yeah. I will see if I can find them. So Living Sacrifice ended, and the Satire was originally going to be me and Lance.
Okay.
And we were doing it under the moniker The Blamed is Dead temporarily. It was never supposed to be that as a name. We got booked at Cornerstone. The perks are working there as I get to play. And then
it was with the Chariot, right? Wasn't it like the Chariot versus The Blamed is Dead?
Yeah, we won't even go into that. But yes.
I remember that.
It was horrible. But I played drums for it. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And I go to sit down and play my drums, and all these people are being really nice to me, wanting to help me out. And it's the drummer of Azalea Dying. It's David from Extol. It's Joe from Beloved. It's all these drum heroes of mine. And they're like, dude, what's up? How can we help you out? And I was like, honestly, go watch that show over at the stage 400 feet away so I can relax and play drums. Like, because I'm not a drummer. I play guitar on the drums.
Okay.
But anyways, so that's almost a wrong question, because the transition where the Satire is now, I mean, when Lance wrote it, he wanted it to be like mall metal. It was designed to be like, our original demos were like melodic.
Interesting. I would not have expected that.
Yeah. Well,
based on the EP that I have. Yeah. And then obviously the new release that you guys have. Like, I mean, yeah, it's interesting to think about that, how you could make that melodic. I mean, it's not like you took that and made it melodic. It became kind of the crazier stuff later.
Once Lance dropped out of the band officially, we called it the Satire. One of the other band members I was playing with named it, and I just slowly started to weed out the melodic stuff as much as I could. And it's still kind of a fairly melodic band, but it's not really.
I mean, it has melody. I think that's why I wanted to bring it up right after bringing up "Bless the Martyr, Kiss the Child," because it took me back there. Especially whenever you guys released that 7-inch, it was like took me right back there.
Oh, thanks.
Like took me back to that place, where I was like, you've got heavy, chaotic, spastic, sort of guitar. And then you've got these like throat shredding, deep vocals. Because like even
Jesse makes the band. I mean, he's so good.
he's so good. He's so good. I feel like we have to say that since Jesse himself is feeling a little insecure tonight, so he felt the need to ask who the Satire's best singer is. And Jesse, I hate to say it, man, but it's basically it's me. Brian's been working.
You and Sid.
Yeah, he's been working. He's been working with me, and the next release it's going to be me. But yeah, no, like dude, Jesse is outrageously good. On vocals on that, like, because he has a delivery that I haven't heard since those early days, like 2004, 2005. Because like, you look at a band like Norma Jean, and this is not any type of like slight against Josh or slight against Corey. Josh delivered in a super brutal manner on Bless the Martyr, that he continued on in the Chariot, famously. But like with
he does it in '68, and it's not even hardcore beat.
Right. But like then you had Corey take over, and Corey did a record with Norma Jean that was also equally like brutal and nice. I don't have that one yet, actually. I need to pick that up.
Just came in the mail as my T-shirt.
I haven't jumped on the '68 train just yet, because I'm a meathead, and I want everything to be brutal, or whatever. But like but that delivery, like, so Corey did a record with Norma Jean that was also like the equally brutal, vocal delivery. And then as Corey went on with Norma Jean, it became like a little bit more melodic, a little bit more understandable. And I have no problem with that. I think some of the later Norma Jean stuff is some of the best stuff that they had ever done, But
I'm a huge fan.
Oh, me too, dude. Like I've got the Polar Similar box set behind me. Like, and
nice.
No, actually it's to my left. I could pull it out on stream, but I'm not going to. I'll send you pictures of it later. It's ridiculous. But but yeah, I just, it's interesting seeing how that style was like so brutal and so extreme. Something that even Travis brought up on one of his old episodes of As the Story Grows is that he was like, yeah, man, these Christian bands deliver like the vocals in such a brutal, extreme way that like even I think some of the secular bands don't really even come close to. But like he's like, why is that? Why does that happen? And I think it all had to do with the fact that like for a while there it was just underground, but underground not like it was underground, but it was popular enough for people that like didn't just listen to the radio.
Yeah, no, they were better when they weren't on MTV.
Yeah,
I mean that's easy.
Yeah, that's an easy one. You're like, hey, you're like, I've been talking to this dude for an hour and 10 minutes. He hasn't even asked me any questions.
It's not true. I told you I was gonna ruin your podcast.
No, you're fine.
But like so on the Satire, I'll make it easy.
Sure.
I got to this point a long time ago. And I don't even have to name names because it's kind of most of them. I got tired of like I got tired of hearing records where everybody's writing these butt rock choruses or mall rock or demo choruses. It just felt so cookie cutter. It's like, here's the one part, here's the next part, and then here's the melodic singy chorus. Great. I don't mind good melodic.
Yeah.
I don't like it when because it becomes sterile. It becomes not authentic, whatever you want to call it. I don't like it. So with the Satire, I mean, we have songs where we do formula, but we really try hard to be honest, I follow some of my guidelines for the later Blamed records of just, I want to embrace the chaos. I don't want to embrace the record sales. Screw that.
I think it's awesome, man. You're making dudes in their mid 30s super happy.
Yeah.
Like, and
dude, that was you were exactly what we were shooting.
That's exactly, you're like, right. I can see you writing down on a dry erase board. Okay. Like, here we go. All right. We need to make music that appeals to dudes that heard Bless the Martyr, Kiss the Child back as soon as it came out,
But I think it went on, what is it? Is it Lamb Goat where everybody's a bunch of jerks and hates everything?
Oh, Lamb Goat. Yep.
It was one of those released did a press thing, I think, for our EP we did on Blood and Ink Records. And it was full of people on there just hacking on like, yeah, this would be cool in 2003.
Right.
Or stuff like that. And I remember we were all laughing like, these are actually great compliments because that's what we're going for.
Right. That was our goal from day one.
Yeah. if we wanted to do a Bring Me the Horizon record, we would do it.
Right. Sure. But anyway, back to the point about 30-year-olds, being really, really into the Satire. What does the Satire have going on? I'm gonna make the rest of this a little bit more personal than like, hey, tell me a story about the history of Christian music.
Yeah, you got us old farts. We'll talk about Christian music forever.
Right.
No, we're just, so my year plan is we're doing, we're finishing the Satire record. We're supposed to do it in 2020, and really just the pandemic really slowed that down. Me and Jesse were really cranking through it and getting vocals done, and it was awesome. And then coronavirus just, I don't know how to go into it beyond that. It just was bad.
Kind of poo-pooed all that, huh?
Well, just, I couldn't get into my studio at times. I mean, just, it was literally, it shut us down.
Yeah.
There was a lot of points in Chicago you couldn't leave your house. I mean, you could, but you really couldn't. It was like, I could leave my house, get in my car, and be in my car.
Yeah, I mean, even I got pulled over on the way to work a few times until my boss had to write a note saying like he's allowed to come to work.
Yeah, you still doing the ventilators?
Yeah, I work for a different company now, but yeah, I fix ventilators for actually for the government. Believe it or not, it's all I'm allowed to say. I signed some thing saying I was only allowed to say that, but yeah.
Yeah, your NDA.
Yep, something like that. It's the first time I ever signed one of those. A media man, you can't have me sign an NDA.
Exactly. I had to sign one once. They're dumb. But but yeah, so the Satire just got pushed back a little further, and that was just, it's funny. I posted it's not funny, I guess, but I posted something on my personal Facebook just about the loss experienced in the last year.
Yeah.
I wasn't meaning it to be this boo-hoo thing that it turned into, but I was just trying to tell a story. Like, man, a year ago, who thought that in 1 year later, we're looking at X, Y, and Z? I don't even want to get into that stuff because we're having a fun podcast, but like, who knew? But so within that, when I talked to Jesse, like, I had to shut my studio down a week ago, and it's not shut down, it's just relocated. But that was where Jesse and I recorded, and it's where we hung out every week. And, we lost that with part of the loss of the pandemic. So, but it put the brakes on the Satire is my point. But not even really the brakes. We're still working on it. I just sent some demos around a couple days ago.
Okay. So there's still forward progress. It's just as slow as it is for anybody.
We have a full record tracked. We were making fun of people that are technologically challenged.
Yeah.
Well, my friend Jesse Hawley is about the top of that list.
Okay.
But he is, when we did the quarantine EP, I really, Jesse's a part of the family. You know what I mean? I'm like, I love having him as much in it as I can.
Yeah.
I think he thinks I do it because I feel sorry for him. And I do it because I actually like working with him. He's my friend.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for him about everything else, but not the music.
Sure.
But but so he's technologically challenged enough. I was like, I want your backups on White Throne. I want your backups on Stretch Armstrong.
Yeah.
Get them for me. How do we do this long distance? He had no idea how to do it. Basically, he had to open his laptop, play the song in his headphones, take his phone, record a video, and scream into it. So, like, I would get these videos of a wall and Jesse screaming, empty them into Pro Tools, chop them, line them. And I was like, only for you, buddy.
Well, those were cool. I was going to get into that was kind of one of the highlights for me, was not only seeing you guys playing, but also like having guest vocalists, having other cool people that I like, kind of on there. You had Travis do a song, you had Jason Wisdom do a song, and it was just really cool kind of to see those sides of the personalities. And it's weird because I would have never thought Travis singing a Stretch Armstrong song would be cool. But then I saw it, and I remember texting him and being like, "Dude, that was a really cool cover." And he's like, "Oh," because he's not on Facebook because he's like too cool for that. But like,
yeah,
like he's like, "Oh, I didn't even know that posted or whatever." I was like, "Dude, it was awesome. It was the highlight of my day, man. I went in and worked on oxygen concentrators like all day long. And then like that's the only fun thing I did today was watch that video, you know?
Well, so the funny thing was, because I wanted Travis to be included, I'm like, hey, why don't you do backups on this stretch song? Because Brad from the Satire sang backups. He's the bassist.
Yeah.
We had we wanted to have Jesse do his from the bathroom, and then let's have Travis do his. I'm like, I need you to film yourself. So he sends me the track like Dropbox file, and it's like, because my throat's messed up, I can't do a good Travis impersonation. But imagine his Philly accent, and he's like, dude, take it or leave it. But I went ahead and just sang the whole song, and it's in the Dropbox. And I was like, what? And so I opened it up, and I'm like, man, how am I going to do the like, oh, bless your heart, stick to drums, buddy. And then we opened up the file, and it was amazing sounding.
Yeah, it was great.
And actually, what's even more funny on a nerd level, it was totally messed up. He totally sent his mic out of phase, and it took like, I had to Google how to treat that and fix it.
Yeah.
But the dynamic was so perfect. I think at one point I'm like, dude, that's great. Re-sing it at not out of phase. And when he re-sang it, it wasn't the same. We had to keep his out of phase vocals and just fix it.
Right.
Even more funny on a nerd level, it was totally messed up. He totally sent his mic out of phase, and it took like, I had to Google how to treat that and fix it.
Yeah.
But the dynamic was so perfect, the Travis story.
It ended up sounding really, really, really cool. And I remember just being like totally blown away. And then whenever, like, it was like only a couple days later when the White Throne cover, you know, dropped, and it was just enjoyable because it was one of those things where I feel like at the time, not to get into like COVID stuff, because like I've beaten that horse to death, but like I found it very enjoyable in the sense that it was a really hopeless time for a lot of people, me especially. Like we were still doing the podcast and stuff, but like even then I was like somewhat inspired because I remember, so the last episode that we did in 2020 was the Blamed episode, in the sense that we did that episode, like that was me and Joe in the studio. We piped in Bryan Patton, you know, for that one. And that was the last time that I was like sitting next to Joe in the studio doing a podcast. And that's the way we had always done it for 3 years, was just me and him, you know, sitting there doing the podcast. I was always in the same room as him. He set my microphone up. He did all the things or whatever. And then I remember
he's your roadie.
yeah. And I remember there being this kind of feeling of like, oh man, like, what are we going to do now? Cause like, I can't go down there or whatever. And he's like, all right, so we'll get you a microphone, you know? And I was like, oh, well, I have a microphone. Like I have a USB microphone. And so like I used that for a while. And then he ended up hooking me up with this like Scarlett USB, you know, interface.
I love those Scarletts. So I know.
Dude, this thing's awesome. It's killer. But like, it was just one of those things where like there are lots and lots of like long conversations on the phone about like, this is what you do. You know, you have to plug this into this. And I considered myself relatively tech savvy before that, but like, he's like, you have to make sure that the computer coming out of, you know, the audio has to come out of your computer and go into the Scarlett, and then come out of the Scarlett and go into your computer again, you know, via USB, and like all of this stuff. And I'm like basically having to learn his job or whatever. But like those videos, those covers and stuff, and I saw not just you guys, but like, you know, everybody kind of stepping up to the plate technologically and being like, we can still deliver this cool experience for you. We just have to do it from our houses. You know, we have to do it, you know, separated from everybody else. And I can only imagine what kind of toll that took on you, considering what your job was at the time. And how that well just completely dries up overnight, you know?
We're the first ones let go, and we'll be the last ones called back.
Yep. 100%.
That's just the statement industry wise. That's not me.
Right.
But, it's funny you say that, because I've covered in a couple of our own topics we post online. I just wanted, like, all seriousness, I wanted just to give a distraction to people. Because, you know, I would open up my Facebook. I'm one of those old demographic. My Facebook, I love seeing my sister's kids. You know, my dad and his girlfriend have a sheep that just gave birth to babies, you know, and I got to see those pictures. And
Yeah.
My sister's husband's a great chef. My cousins post pictures of their kids all the time and families, and I just love seeing this family camaraderie thing on my Facebook feed. But then just out of nowhere, it was full of just this toxic behavior. And I was like, dude, the country's gone to heck and back, whatever. I'm not polarized and divided into these camps. So I don't care about the politics, but I'm caring that there's people that are struggling with mental health right now. And then we're coming in and just being, I don't know the word for it, toxic online.
Yeah.
So, and the news is being horrible. Just nothing's telling the truth. I'm like, what the heck? So I just had this vision idea. Let's do these covers. Well, which ones do we do? And I was like, I'm going to do all these ones from my youth. And the truth of the matter is, my standard for covers kind of usually, I'm working on one that isn't this short, but they have to be less than 3 minutes.
Sure.
Keep them short, keep them to the point. That way people can hold their attention and get out. But we put them online. I'm not bragging. They got viewed a bunch. And the goal wasn't even like, how many views did we get? It was like, how many minutes did we steal from this venomous poison with these stupid videos? I'll take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah. From people that were just sitting at home.
Yeah.
That might have been thinking negative thoughts, might have been thinking,
Yeah.
and I remember being particularly, I mean, I worked through the whole thing,
Yeah.
I didn't stay home. I feel worse for my wife, who was home with 4 kids, where our youngest, is like a year old now. And like, he basically, the first year of his life was this,
Yeah.
he didn't see any walls outside of his 4 walls, and now he's adventurous. It's funny. It's like seeing him, like he always wants to be outside.
Yeah.
And always wants to be doing things and being, very active and all that. Which is just, it's exhausting just to watch him do things, but like,
Sure.
but like, yeah, and it definitely was a huge, I'm not ashamed to say it, like a huge blessing, it was it was a very positive experience for me. And it was fun too, because like through the podcast, I've had the benefit of making kind of friends with people, so, I got to send Travis a message and be like, dude, that was so cool. What you did there. And, I had messaged you and Jesse, about those things. And, I may even messaged Jason. I was like, that was the best Roger Martinez impression I've heard, in a long time. Like he should call those dudes that used to be in Vengeance and be like,
sign me up.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's put out another record.
But that was even like the 121 guys are my heroes, so getting to do a song with them or just, like, I still go back and look at these videos and go, man, this was great, And then recently me and Christopher Foley from Luxury have we did the one Blunderhead collaboration at the end of the year. I don't know if you saw that one or not. And then we've got another one we're working on too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's cool too. So like, I guess like to get it a little bit into your, I'll be wrapping up here in a little bit, cause I know it's been kind of a long chat, but like the,
two-parter.
as far as I don't do 2-parters.
No, I'm saying I'm horrible.
Right. Well, but like to kind of get into your process, because you're one of the only people I know that like doesn't seem satisfied with how things are, or sitting there and kind of just like letting things ride out and see. It always seems like you're working on something. You're collaborating with someone on something. There's always something new coming down the pipeline. Is this just like some sort of way that you keep from becoming bored, or?
No, because I'm not very bored.
I can imagine that you can't ever really be bored.
Well, the blame is really Jim, Jeff, and Sid. Then I just am the one that walks in and goes, okay, well, if we're going to do it, this is how. But, if they tomorrow said they were tired of doing it, then we'd be done overnight. That's really their baby more than mine. The Satire is me and Jesse. That's the project I've been working on since 2004. The songs you're hearing, some of those songs are from probably 2005.
Yeah.
That we just never finished. And they've been probably a little more modernized or something, a little slightly reworked. But I like Jesse and some of that company are always like, let's just write new songs. And I'm like, man, I stop until I put out this record that I've been working on for 15 years, and then we can talk about it.
Right. I just feel like I just feel like this is kind of dark, but like I feel like at your funeral, we're all going to be waiting outside, and we're going to be like, "Well, hold on, he's got to finish this record first,
Yeah.
or this EP, or this, like." And it's just it blows my mind because like I can't think of anybody else that was like that other than like a Lemmy from like Motorhead, in the sense of just
Sure.
like constantly just having to create, and whether it's new material or not, it's new to us. It's new. It's
Sure.
new to the listeners. And I just it's funny because like my wife criticizes me about that too. She's like, it's never over. Like, why can't you just take a vacation? But it's inspiring to me to see guys like you out there doing that. Like, where it's like, no, I'm never satisfied with the status quo. I want to just kind of keep pushing forward.
Well, my running joke is the blamed honestly is like a train. I mean, that thing is flying down the track. You either get on or you don't. Like, that's a conversation I have to have with the band members when they're slacking, to be honest.
Yeah.
Is I'm like, look, I want you to do this. You guys said you wanted me to do this. I'm doing it. So now to this point, get on or don't. Now, Jim is 100%.
Yeah.
The other half of that, like Jim and I have our talks where we go, what about this? What about that? And then we just try to work out the logistics. I do have the secret weapon that I follow the Emery culture pretty close. And
those guys have got it figured out, man.
Well, they do. And usually, to be honest, what's been kind of fun lately is half of the crap I'm doing, they've already just finished, and I don't even know about it till after the fact. So I'll be like, oh, like we've been working on the demos for redoing this first album, the 2021, for a while now. And then Emery just redid their first album.
Yeah.
So I was like, but so some of me, when I hear that stuff, get like, oh man, I want to copy Emery. But then I'm like, I was already doing this. I don't care. I'll never be as big as Emery, so I don't care. I don't care. I'm just going to do it. And our fans, I hate the word fans. Our music community seems to appreciate the content. So we all are in this together. It's great. The same thing, we did the Christmas recording, and they emailed me saying, hey, check out our Christmas EP we did. And I was like, son of a gun. I just finished ours and haven't released it yet. But it wasn't enough where it was going to stop me. I was just like, I'm happy that we're in the same creative mindset.
Sure. Dude, I think it's awesome. Like it's cool, and it's inspirational for me when I feel lazy and I'm like, like at the beginning of this year, I was like just kind of riding off the coattails because I mean, as bad as 2020 was for a lot of people, it was good for me in a podcast sense, in the sense that like, I had amazing people come out of the woodwork and be like, yeah, dude, I know I told you no last year, but I got some time now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
the listeners had time, the guests had time.
Yeah. So like I can sit down and have a 2-hour conversation with somebody that I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I have really no business talking to, but it's one of those like, everybody had time, so it went really well. But I remember like kind of riding on the coattails of that and being like, oh, 2020 was a great year as far as content. I got messages from people being like, hey, thank you so much for continuing to make podcasts through all of this. It was really great and all that, whatever. And I just took that as like, oh yeah, that's great. Give yourself a pat on the back or whatever it is. But then, we go into 2021 and I'm like, I remember Joe messaging me and being like, hey man, you got like 3 or 4 interviews ready for me to like mess with, right? And I'm like, yeah, about that. Like it was one of those like if you don't stay on me, that like I'll take breaks and I'll stop doing things. And but then I kind of look at guys like you, and I'm like, I need to always be doing something, because if I cease to do, then I just kind of like lose kind of sort of a sense of myself, I guess, in a way. And so I think it was inspirational, and a lot of it, a lot of my drive in 2020 was watching those videos, and you guys were always doing stuff, even if it wasn't covers. There were so many videos in 2020, and and I thought it was even cool. You guys did the live stream with Flatfoot, and that was a great evening for me. I was literally like, I came downstairs like I have nothing to do because I wasn't interviewing people, which is what I should have been doing. But it was one of those like, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here and watch The Blame now for for an hour, and that was cool. And then you guys did another live stream after that or whatever. So like, I think to a certain extent, I think that maybe you're doing a lot of this, for you as far as like you want to keep yourself motivated, stay on top of things. But like the side effect of that is, guys like me that are like, oh man, I need to be like stepping it up a little bit. I need to be like, always doing, always planning, always seeing ahead. So
yeah, for
I
sure.
think
Like, we look at everything definitely a full year. When I say we're doing 2021 this year, we're not talking May.
sure,
It'll probably come out this summer or later.
sure. And I don't know how you sit on stuff like that for so long,
It's actually just that it takes us that long to do.
Yeah. For me, it's like if I have something that I know is going to happen, it's hard for me not to just like blab about it. Like it's.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Well,
we so when we did the Churches Hurting People,
great record.
There was so much hype pre that album coming out when it wasn't done
yet. Yeah,
it drove me nuts because I wasn't necessarily doing it, and that really made me almost like I don't like the pre-announcement. Like even this, I don't love pre-announcing the 2021, but I don't mind because I know we're going to do it. And then we're even going to do the songs that are dumb on that record. We're literally going to play every song on it. I think the only spoiler alert will be I'm not doing an acoustic version of the ballad on it.
Sure. That's awesome though.
Yeah.
I'm stoked for it. And you remember what I said about that record,
Yeah, you don't even like it.
I didn't say I didn't like it.
I'm saying you just said you didn't like it.
Okay, well that's fine. it's whatever you want it to be. But
I'm putting words in your mouth.
That's fine. It if there was somebody I was gonna let do it, but like I think it's awesome, and I appreciate how humble you are, and I appreciate how you. But I also think that to a certain extent, kind of an attaboy is appropriate in the sense that like you the things that you do, whether they mean a lot to you or not, or you don't think they're a big deal, they're a big deal to people that people like me that are kind of watching and kind of listening
thanks.
and kind of keeping our ear to the ground and stuff. So you've had a hell of a career. You've had, you've gotten to meet people. You've got to be involved in things behind the scenes, sometimes in front of the scenes. That I think most people would absolutely be salivating over some of the opportunities. So I guess what I'm trying to say collectively is people that are fans of not just The Blame, not just the Satire, but also like just you in general. We appreciate you, man.
The community.
Yeah, we do. We appreciate it. And, I'm sorry if I'm the first person to say it. I don't think that I am, though.
I'm not good at receiving compliments.
I understand. I don't expect you to say anything back on that, but I
know. I just meant I know how big of a doofus I am. So
sure. I mean, I can relate to that. People always tell me good job, and I'm like, oh, dude, that was a disaster.
Yeah, no, I think you do a great job. The LS thing was great, so
the LS thing was super cool, but yeah.
Ask me your LS question. That can be our closing. How about that?
All right. A living sacrifice question.
Well, I thought you said you had one.
I do. I have a couple, but I'll try to limit it to just one.
No, ask the couple because it's a fun topic that never gets talked about in my interviews.
Okay, so this is controversial, and it actually has nothing to do with you filling in the band. Okay. The first time,
I love this topic. Sorry.
The first time you heard Living Sacrifice, did you ever expect them to go as far as they have gone?
That's an unfair question. I had their dumb demo tape.
Okay, well, let's ignore not yielding to ungodly.
I had the demo tape. DJ and I traded demos.
I don't have the demo. Ugh. I wonder if DJ does. I'm gonna message DJ after this and be like, dude, do you have the demo? Because I want the demo.
I bought the demo from a mail order dad in a magazine, and then I sent him my demo for fun.
Okay.
So It's a tough question with LS because I was there through all of it. As like Bruce was really big on the Blamed.
Sure.
He was always really supportive of the Blamed. And so when I heard DJ quit, so the way the routing was, I'm from the West Coast originally.
Yeah.
When you leave, if you're smart, when you leave California, you take 40 out to like, I don't know, Kansas City or something. And then you split off from there. You avoid the Rockies. You avoid Route 10 through the desert. So we always did that. We always ended up in Little Rock, no matter what. Felt like our first show on every tour was Kansas City or Memphis. And then, so I was always at Lance's house. They were like family to me. You know, his parents would let us come stay there. So I remember being on the 21 tour. I don't think DJ had quit the band yet. And they're having band practice at Lance's house, and it's Lance, Bruce, and Jason, and they're just practicing their set without DJ. And we got to sit in and watch. And it was so much fun. So that's my point of like, we were just kind of there through all of it. Then you fast forward, DJ's not in the band anymore, steps down, and they put out the, whatever they call it, the 95 demo tape or something. And
still looking for a copy of that, by the way.
They went on tour with the Blamed, and we were falling apart. There's a lot of like the Blamed history that we don't ever get into of like, you know, like 95, with the Blamed goes on tour, and like 3 shows are with Circle of Dust, 3 shows are with Live and Sacrifice, or most tours with LS or something. It's like a pretty well set up tour. And right before we go, Jeremy quits the band. Jim says he can't go. My backup drummer can't go. I get a kid from our church to fill in for us. And we just played the worst set I've ever played in my life for a month on the road. And I've got Living Sacrifice going on tour with us with a demo tape to keep trying to reestablish their career. And it's just a total train wreck. So at that point, did I see the future of LS? Well, I mean, they were phenomenal. Like, we would come out every night and we would do, if you're familiar with Frail, we did Declaration Dead and Weakness from that record. And Lance would jump on our drum kit and play. And Jason Truby would jump on the mic and sing. And we did that for a long time. And then we were setting up to do the Again record. I actually asked Jason Truby to sing on the record. But at that point, he basically told me in private he was leaving the band. So there was no way he could leave LS and then sing for the Blind.
Right.
So
yeah. Without causing some kind of weird feelings. Yeah.
Well, and we weren't doing that much, you know. So I was like, well, Jason, we only play a couple times a year. But he was like, no way. So, but either way, so then but Bruce had already taken over singing. We knew that was going to be huge and great. And then Reborn drops, and you're like, so from there, yeah, when you saw Reborn drop, you were like, this is the future. You know, I get that there's a lot of these Sepultura moments on this record, but I still would listen to Reborn over any Sepultura record.
Yeah.
So
I remember actually saying about it whenever I first heard Reborn that like it's like Chaos AD, but better.
Yeah.
You know, it's more interesting because Chaos AD is a great record, but it almost like a proof of concept.
Yeah. And then Jason quits the band. They go on another small hiatus. At that point in 98, Lance was filling in for the Blind all the time for Jim. So we knew what was going on behind the scenes with them. They got a new guy named Rocky. The Deso Karis had broke up. They were trying to get Arthur to play bass for them, and maybe thinking about getting a percussion player. So then post all that, the hammering process comes out, and you're like,
holy
this
crap.
is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that's my answer to the last question, is I was kind of there through it. So it's hard to have that perspective.
This is a question that I'm going to end up eventually asking Bruce, but I'm going to ask you instead because you're here. Were they playing like Inhabit, non-exist, like before they like, okay, in that transitionary period where Bruce took over as the singer, were they still playing old material?
The tour we did with them it only was the couple songs from the demo and then all old material.
Oh, wow. Okay. I've always been interested in hearing what Bruce would have sounded like on some of that old stuff. And
I've been actually trying to talk him into for years.
Yeah,
redoing it.
Yeah,
and that's all I can say about that.
But at the same time, I'm such good buds with DJ now that like I would want to hear him redo it. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those, you know. I know it's one of the weirdest relationships, like friendships that I've established from doing the podcast. Is, you know, I said a whole bunch of stuff about DJ's vocals like not being as good as Bruce's, and then he reaches out and then like is like super chatty and super fun and cool, and I'm like,
DJ's awesome.
Yeah, and so now I've got like a much more. I don't know if it's because of that personal connection or whatever, like what separates music reviewer from friend or whatever, but like I listen to DJ on Inhabit and on the self-titled, and I'm just like, yeah, dude, DJ's awesome. Like I want to hear, I want to hear him now. And he did a guest vocal on a newer band's EP, and it was awesome. I remember like being there for it. Like yes, let's hear DJ. And
I know what you're talking about. It was great.
Yeah, and he was incredible.
I just meant from the perspective of we toured with Bruce singing the old songs. So I was like, Bruce, just redo these old songs the way everybody knows you as a singer. And it's not a trash on DJ. It's just two different worlds,
Yeah. It's two different types of music fans too.
Yeah.
If you're a metalcore guy, that grew up on As I Lay Dying and Killswitch Engage and stuff, you want to hear Bruce.
Yeah.
But like if you're an old school metal fan and you appreciate stuff like Obituary and like some of those earlier death metal bands, like what DJ was doing wasn't like all that different than what a lot of the death metal bands were doing at the time.
I love DJ. I even love Non-Existent. Like to me, because of the punk rock in me, is like, yeah, it's effed up in all the right ways.
Non-Existent. It's that album is such a hard sell on my co-hosts. Whenever because we've done Living Sacrifice's discography a couple times because I love the band so much that I just felt the need to do it twice, and that was Non-Existent's always like because we had a different co-host for the second discography discussion on Living Sacrifice, and even he was like, yeah, Non-Existent's got a lot of really cool music on it, but like what's the deal with those vocals? And and after having DJ on the show and having him be like, look, we honestly thought that whenever REX heard this, that they would make us, go back and redo it or something. Instead, I guess they were just like, yep, sounds good. Let's go ahead and ship it. But yeah, that's definitely one of the weirdest friendships that I've developed through this is like DJ being such an amazing person.
He's great.
I
agree. I love when he sends me pictures of retro things. It's so much fun.
He's got an amazing collection. Like and part of me, because like Little Rock's not that far from where I'm at. Like,
yeah, just go down and have lunch with him.
Yeah, once everything's all chill, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna drive down there. We're gonna hang. He's gonna show me all of his cool stuff that he's collected over the years. Like I'm looking forward to that.
The bummer is I think the live stream world is probably coming to an end. But otherwise, I would say, man, when we do the LS live stream, just coming out.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm down for that. I was going to come to the show, the Blamed and Living Sacrifice show, because that was one of those. That was one of those situations where, like, I would have just bought a ticket and drove up there, and then kind of been like, "Hey guys, like I'm that guy that does that show," and see how far that got me, past security or whatever. But like,
you just would have to text me, and I would have been like, "Cool,
yeah,
help me carry these lights."
Yep, I'd be like, "All right, great, I got these lights. Where do you want them?" But yeah, like, and I remember that was super disappointing. That's actually whenever I realized how serious like a lot of this stuff was, because I was like, "I'm gonna go to this show. It's gonna be so cool." Because it didn't get canceled right away. And so there was still hope that like, okay, this is the last cool thing I'm going to get to do before we have to like all go lock down or whatever, but then it was like, no, sorry. It's over, cancel your plans.
Yeah. Game over, man. It's crazy. But so the fun topic, I'll even bring it up. It's funny, but the LS conversation is, like, I think it was Matt Carter and I were talking because he did a Bruce.
Yeah,
label.
That was really good. Yeah.
I thought it was great too. But Matt Carter was even talking. He's like, I've heard your name mentioned. Is this really true? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm their lighting guy.
Whatever you've heard, it's all true.
But so when Matt and I were talking, he was like, I can't picture LS without Bruce. Right? None of us can.
I mean, he's always been in the band. I mean,
but the thing that's hard to paint the picture, so I thought about this after watching the doc, is that if you think about that year or that time frame, it was like Dallas left Under Oath. You had Zay had already been doing a bunch of tours with Corey on vocals.
Yeah.
And then eventually you had what's his name? Chris from what was that Solid State band? With the knife fight song or something. The
Sinus? No.
Yeah, Sinus. He had done a bunch of fill-ins for them. So you had all these, you're dealing with Inhale Exhale. I got signed at a different singer. Eventually Josh would go on to leave Norma Jean. I mean, nobody thought Norma Jean would exist without Josh.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that's what's funny in that concept of time and space is when you think about it, is I was like, just that was that year. You think about Tooth and Nail, Solid State, Under Oath, not the original singer that was on the first record.
Right.
Just every one of these bands on their roster lost their vocalist. I mean, outside of Emery, I don't even know if I can think of one that, Haste Today lost their singer.
Yeah, changed singers, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually tried out to be the singer of Haste Today, but I was like a kid, so I think the demo tape I sent him was awesome, but I wish I still had a copy of that. I sent him the only copy of it.
Yeah, he didn't know any better.
Did not hear back. But yeah, like that's just one of those things that everybody lost their singer all around the same time. And it's so funny because you look at the rock world in general, the singer is, I don't want to say they're the most important member of the band, although if you ask any singer, they will say that is the case. But it's so funny in this metalcore world or whatever, most people that are into Norma Jean only know Norma Jean because of Corey.
Yeah.
Most people that know Under Oath only know Under Oath because of Spencer. And As They Dying, they at least kept Tim, but then Tim had kind of a big, weird life change, is the most sensitive way I can say that.
No, totally.
There was
Famine lost McCadden.
Yeah, the Famine lost McCadden. Although that
lost McCadden.
I love that dude's voice.
I do too. But that's just what I mean. There was this thing in that timestamp that I just think is an interesting topic. That's all.
Totally. We could do a whole nother podcast on that. Yeah. So
but you fast forward to 2021 and you ask me about LS without Bruce, and I'm like, it doesn't even compute.
Doesn't make sense. And it makes sense too how that all went down. When Bruce was going to leave the band and they were going to have Corey, do it. And Corey's even said in interviews, he's like, yeah, I don't know, man. I tried doing it, but I couldn't. Just something didn't feel right about it. It wouldn't, because the dude's got, the voice for it. I think for the most part, he's got the guitar chops for it.
Oh, he's got the guitar chops.
Yeah, 100%. So it would have been the real deal. It would have been it would have been, probably again, if we lived in that alternate reality where it took over it, whenever we would inevitably do the discography discussion on it, however many years later, I'd be like, it's one of the best vocalist replacements I've ever heard. You know what I mean? It's one of those, not that Corey sounds like Bruce, but if you imagine if they had put a couple records out with Corey or it had sounded like that.
It's just Corey sounds like Corey, and that's where it would have been amazing. It's just hear Corey do his own thing. So again, and I just only brought it up because I thought it's an interesting topic.
It is
on the heels of that documentary we just watched, which is amazing. Of just you're like, yeah, it doesn't make sense living Sacrifice without Bruce, and I'm glad it didn't happen. But at the same point, if it would have happened, it really that date that we're talking about, it made sense.
Yeah.
But that's about it, And then, but even you hear when they talk about, I was glad to hear Bruce talk about it because him and I have joked about it.
Yeah.
is when he talked about whatever he said about Conceit and Fire in the documentary. I thought was great.
Yeah.
Because they were talking about how they just were tired,
exhausted. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was some of that as being like I said, I'm a music nerd on a scientific level, and I remember even telling Bruce back then because he would bring the Blamed all the time. He was really supportive to us, and I was like, because he would talk about that record, I was like, well, you can hear it, and it's weird because when you go in and listen to it, Bruce's vocals are probably bigger than they've ever been on that record.
He sounds like a monster on that record.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the vigor that the hammering process and Reborn had. So everybody that listens, that's how Bruce and I would talk about it. He probably hates me saying this, but is that everybody prefers his voice on those two records, but you don't catch that he's singing a million times better on Conceit and Fire. Every record's an improvement, but the songs you want to hear on those first two Bruce records, the only reason I ever realized it was because, so really my role with LS is I'm their lighting tech if they can afford it or it's that kind of show or whatever. I love being their lighting guy to learn all the cues. It's a great role to have. I get to hang out with my best friends. And then, so I made an iPod playlist back in the day of the set list in order for me to practice my lighting cues.
Yeah, sure.
And listening to this, everything disjointed, I was like, you can hear it. But it took that for me to understand what Bruce was talking about because I was like, hammering process all the way,
Sure, yeah. No, I agree. I agree with that because you can definitely hear it, but it definitely did take Bruce saying it on the documentary to really solidify what that feeling was.
Well, and again, we were touring with them, so we saw it.
Sure.
And then I eventually went into the role of being almost in the band.
Yeah.
So I was seeing the tail end of that. So, but anyways, well, that's it. I will let you be. It's 2 hours.
Yeah, man. If anybody's dissatisfied, sorry. You know.
If you're dissatisfied, start your own podcast.
Well, yeah, we can. I mean, that's what I did, right? But I know yeah. I mean, if you guys want to hear a whole history of the Blamed and all that, definitely go and listen to As the Story Grows with Bryan Patton. He does a whole interview with Bryan, and Bryan talks to Bryan for an hour, and they talk about the whole history of the Blamed and all of that. And I just didn't want to have that same conversation over again, just because it's out there. You guys can go listen to it. So I definitely appreciate all you guys that have watched the live stream, and I've got some cool stuff in my pocket coming up soon. So definitely stay tuned for that, and we will catch you guys later. Bryan, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for tolerating my voice.
Hey, man, your voice doesn't sound that bad. Come on, man. Like, everybody's all like, everybody's like, yeah, you still have Bryan Gray on the podcast. And I'm like, yeah, he keeps saying his voice doesn't work. It seemed to work fine tonight.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not what you wanted it to be, but hey, you're good, man. You're good.
Well, thanks for having me. And tell Joe I love him.
Oh, I will.
This has been the Discuss Metal Podcast with Bryan Gray of The Blamed. Presented by discussmetal.com.
Waste your life, have hope and have no fear. The truth walks by your side.